They said it was a waste of time. Every hour I spent recording, editing, or uploading was treated like a joke. Friends laughed. Family questioned my future. Teachers suggested I focus on something serious. But while they mocked, I quietly kept going, one video at a time. I had no guarantee of success, no blueprint, and no audience. Just a passion I couldn't ignore. And eventually, that passion turned into something much bigger than anyone, including me, could have imagined. This is the story of how everything changed. I still remember the first time I stumbled across a YouTube video that felt more than just entertainment. It wasn't polished, it wasn't professional. It was just someone in their room, speaking to a camera with raw honesty. Something about that moment sparked a curiosity in me. If they could do it, why couldn't I? I became obsessed with the idea of creating, of putting my own voice into the world. At first, it wasn't even about fame, money, or subscribers. It was about the thrill of making something from scratch and sharing it with anyone willing to watch. I began spending hours exploring different creators, studying how they spoke, the angles they used, and the way they edited. I wasn't skilled, and I didn't have the equipment. Just an old phone with a shaky camera and barely functioning microphone. Still, the thought of uploading something to the same platform where millions of people connected daily was exhilarating. It felt like opening a door to a world where I could exist on my own terms. But outside of my little bubble of inspiration, the reaction was harsh. My parents didn't understand. They'd ask questions in that worried, half-critical tone that cut deep. Why are you wasting time with this? Shouldn't you focus on something serious? A real career. My friends weren't any kinder. When I mentioned working on videos, they laughed and teased me endlessly. Some would even pull up my channel in front of others just to mock the handful of views my uploads had. I can still hear the sarcastic comments. Wow, 20 views? Guess you're famous now. The sting of their words was sharp, but I tried to laugh along, hiding how much it hurt. The truth was, those early videos were terrible. The lighting was awful, my voice cracked with nerves, and the editing was almost non-existent. Sometimes the audio didn't sync with the video, and my attempts at adding background music sounded like a mess of static. I uploaded them anyway. Even if only 3 people watched, even if no one left a comment, hitting that publish button gave me a strange sense of pride. Each video was like planting a seed, even if the soil looked barren. There were nights I'd stay awake staring at my phone, refreshing the page, hoping the view count would climb by just one more number. Often, it didn't. Yet, instead of discouraging me, it pushed me deeper. I didn't know why, but I couldn't stop. Something inside me kept whispering that it mattered, that these tiny, unseen efforts would someday connect to something greater. It's hard to explain that feeling to someone who's never had a dream that others laughed at. It was like carrying a small flame in a storm, everyone else trying to blow it out, while I cupped my hands around it, determined to keep it alive. I had no subscribers to boast about, no applause to prove my worth, but I had an unshakable drive. And that drive, though invisible to everyone else, was the one thing that kept me pressing record, even when the world told me I was wasting my time. The hardest part of starting wasn't the technical struggles or the bad equipment, it was the silence. I'd upload a video, pour hours into editing, and when I finally pressed publish, nothing would happen. Days would go by, and the view counter would stubbornly sit at 0. No likes. No comments. Not even hate. And in a strange way, the silence was worse than criticism. At least with hate, someone acknowledges your presence. But being ignored completely made me question if I even existed in the massive sea of YouTube. It was humiliating, too, because people noticed. My classmates discovered my channel, and instead of encouragement, they used it as material for jokes. "That's so cringe," they'd say, mocking my awkward delivery, my unpolished edits, the shaky audio. I'd walk into school and overhear my own videos being replayed on someone's phone, followed by bursts of laughter. Friends I thought would support me slowly drifted away, as if associating with me would make them just as laughable. The more I tried to defend myself, the harder they laughed. And when I stayed quiet, their laughter grew even louder. At home, it wasn't any better. My parents grew increasingly frustrated. They couldn't understand why I'd spend late nights hunched over a computer for something that brought no return. They'd say things like, "You're throwing your future away," or "You're wasting your potential on nonsense." They wanted me to study harder, to focus on getting into a stable career path like medicine, engineering, or business, things people respected. To them, YouTube wasn't a job. It wasn't even a hobby. It was just a distraction, a dangerous one pulling me away from what they believed truly mattered. And yet, the more they pushed me to stop, the more I felt torn. Part of me wanted to give in, to pack it all up and just follow the traditional path everyone else seemed so comfortable with. I can't count the nights I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, asking myself why I was even doing this. Was I delusional? Was I clinging to a dream that didn't exist? Sometimes I'd break down, sitting at my desk with tears in my eyes, hands frozen above the keyboard. I wanted so badly to quit, but something deep inside refused to let me. It was like standing at the edge of a cliff, terrified of falling, but unable to turn back. The contrast between what society expected and what I was chasing was suffocating. On one side, there was the safe route: school, degree, stable job, paycheck every month, and a life that was respectable but predictable. On the other side, there was YouTube, uncertain, unstable, and unforgiving. A place where thousands tried and failed every single day. A place where success wasn't guaranteed no matter how hard you worked. And yet, something about the risk called to me. It wasn't just about making videos anymore. It was about proving to myself that I could carve a path outside the lines drawn for me. But the road was lonely. Every upload felt like shouting into a void. I'd sit in my room, watching other creators grow rapidly, while I seemed frozen in place. The jealousy, the frustration, the self-doubt, it all piled up. I'd ask myself, why not me? What's wrong with me? Am I just not good enough? Those questions haunted me, but they also kept me moving. As much as I wanted to quit, I couldn't bear the thought of giving up completely. Because deep down, I knew if I stopped now, it wouldn't be because I failed, it would be because I let the world convince me to. And I wasn't ready to let them win. Not yet. After all the doubt, the silence, and the mockery, I made a decision. If I was going to fail, I'd fail giving it everything I had. No more half-hearted attempts. No more uploading only when I felt like it. I created a strict schedule. Whether it was daily uploads or at least one video every single week, I swore to myself I'd stick to it. Consistency became my lifeline. Even if nobody was watching, I was determined to act like they were. Of course, I had no formal training. I wasn't a film student, I didn't know how algorithms worked, and my editing knowledge was almost zero. But I started learning, one late-night tutorial at a time. I'd spend hours watching how to use editing software, how to cut out awkward pauses, how to add text overlays, and how to match music to a mood. I studied thumbnails, realizing how a single image could make or break whether someone clicked. I experimented with titles, keywords, tags, and SEO, learning slowly that YouTube wasn't just about creating, it was about presenting your creation in the right way. Those nights were long. I'd come home after school or work, exhausted, and instead of relaxing, I'd sit down to record or edit. Sometimes I'd stay up until 3 in the morning, my eyes burning, my head pounding, but still glued to the screen. I'd cut, trim, render, and re-upload again and again until it looked right, or at least, less terrible than the last attempt. My room became my studio, my desk became my control center, and my tired reflection on the screen became the only companion who truly understood what I was chasing. The funny thing was, despite all that effort, the payoff wasn't immediate. I didn't suddenly go viral, I didn't wake up with thousands of subscribers. But something small began to happen. My skills grew. Each video looked a little sharper than the last. My audio became clearer. My edits less clumsy. And slowly, the numbers, tiny as they were, started to shift. 10 views became 20. 2 subscribers became 10, then 20. They weren't big leaps, but to me, they felt monumental. For the first time, I wasn't shouting into complete emptiness. Someone out there was listening. I remember the first time a stranger, not a friend, not a family member, not someone I begged, left a genuine comment on one of my videos. It was short, something like, "Nice video, keep it up," but it felt like validation I had been starving for. It proved I wasn't invisible. That tiny notification lit up my entire week. Of course, there were still long stretches of nothing, videos that flopped, uploads that went unnoticed. But every so often, those little sparks of growth kept me moving. The journey still felt uphill, exhausting, and endless, but I wasn't standing still anymore. With every upload, I wasn't just building a channel, I was building myself. Discipline, persistence, and skills that I didn't even realize I was developing began to stack, one late night at a time. It was far from success, but it was movement. And for the first time since I started, movement was enough to keep me going. I'll never forget the night it happened. I had uploaded dozens of videos before, each one vanishing into the void with barely a handful of views. But this one felt different from the start. I had worked harder than usual, spending extra time on the edit, refining the thumbnail until it popped, rewriting the title 3 times before I hit publish. Still, I expected the usual outcome, a few pity clicks, maybe 1 or 2 comments if I was lucky. But when I woke up the next morning and checked my phone, the numbers didn't look real. Instead of sitting at 5 or 6 views, the counter had already climbed into the hundreds. I refreshed again, and the number jumped. By the end of the day, it had crossed into the thousands. I remember staring at the screen, my heart racing, trying to process what was happening. People were watching, actual strangers, not just friends I begged. The silence I had endured for so long was suddenly replaced with a flood of attention. Comments poured in, likes shot up, and for the first time, my notifications couldn't keep up. The rush was indescribable. All those nights of exhaustion, all the mockery, all the doubts, they felt lighter, almost worth it as I read each comment. People were laughing at my jokes, sharing the video, tagging friends. Some even asked when my next upload would be. That single video, which started like all the others, had slipped through the cracks of the algorithm and found an audience I never imagined possible. And suddenly, the people who had once mocked me started paying attention. Friends who had laughed at my early attempts now sent me messages like, "Yo, that video's actually doing pretty well," or, "I saw you on my feed, nice work." It was subtle, but I could feel the shift, the ridicule softening into curiosity, even respect. Classmates who once replayed my cringy videos to embarrass me were now asking, "So how'd you get that many views?" My parents, too, noticed the difference. They didn't fully understand it, but the tone of their questions changed. It wasn't, "Why are you wasting time?" anymore. It became, "So, what happens if this keeps growing?" The growth of that one video didn't just boost my confidence, it gave me momentum. Other creators started noticing too. A slightly bigger YouTuber in my niche left a comment, which later turned into a collaboration. That collab introduced me to an even wider audience, and suddenly my channel wasn't just crawling, it was running. I learned firsthand the power of the algorithm, of timing, of consistency. The universe had finally cracked the door open for me, and I wasn't about to let it shut again. With the little bit of money I began earning from ads, I made my first reinvestment. No more shaky phone camera and muffled audio. I bought a budget microphone, then upgraded to a basic camera, and later some softbox lights. Each upgrade felt like leveling up in a game. Not only did it make my videos look and sound better, but it also made me feel more legitimate. Like I wasn't just some kid messing around anymore, I was a creator building something real. And that realization hit me harder than any number could. Growth wasn't just possible, it was happening. The years of persistence, of pushing through silence, of ignoring the laughter and doubts, they weren't wasted. They were the foundation. That breakthrough video wasn't luck, it was the result of every late night, every small skill I had picked up when nobody was watching. For the first time, I believed, truly believed, that I could make it. The first milestone that truly felt like a dream was hitting 1,000 subscribers. To someone on the outside, that number might not sound impressive. It's not a million, it's not even six figures, but to me it was monumental. It meant 1,000 people, actual living, breathing humans, had chosen to click that red button because they wanted to see more. I remember watching the count crawl closer each day, refreshing like a maniac as it inched toward 4 digits. When it finally hit 1,000, I sat back in my chair in disbelief. I wasn't invisible anymore. But what really shook me was what came next. 10,000. At that point, it wasn't just numbers. It was a community. Comments started pouring in after every upload, not just nice video, but paragraphs. People sharing how my content made them laugh, motivated them, or helped them through a bad day. I started recognizing names in the comments, loyal viewers who would show up every time without fail. Some of them even started defending me against negativity, shutting down the rare trolls who still tried to drag me down. It was no longer just me talking into a camera, it was a conversation, a connection, a small family forming around what I was creating. Then came the moment I had been waiting for since the beginning: monetization. I remember opening the dashboard, reading the email that my channel was eligible, and feeling my heart race. That first $1 I earned wasn't just money, it was validation. Proof that all those nights I stayed awake editing, all the times I endured laughter and doubt, were finally turning into something tangible. It wasn't about the amount, it was about what it represented. That single dollar was louder than every insult, heavier than every doubt. Of course, success brought a mix of reactions. Some friends and classmates who once mocked me now acted supportive, too supportive, suddenly asking for shout-outs, advice, or collaborations. It was hard to tell who genuinely cared and who just wanted a piece of something they once dismissed. At the same time, I found new allies, people who had always quietly believed in me but were now cheering loudly, proud to see me proving everyone wrong. But growth came with new challenges. The pressure to keep up was intense. Suddenly, it wasn't enough to upload whenever I felt like it. People were waiting. Expectations were higher. If I skipped an upload, I felt guilty, like I was letting everyone down. The fun hobby that once carried me through hard days was now a responsibility, and sometimes, the weight of it was exhausting. Burnout crept in quietly. I'd find myself staring at the screen for hours, unable to edit, or recording take after take because nothing felt good enough. Still, I pushed forward. Because no matter how tired I was, no matter how heavy the pressure felt, the thought of letting it all slip away scared me more than the work itself. I had fought too hard, for too long, to stop now. The milestones were no longer just numbers, they were proof of a journey that was only beginning. It was strange watching the shift happen. The same people who once rolled their eyes when I mentioned YouTube were suddenly leaning in with interest. My parents, who used to scold me for wasting time, began asking me questions instead: what kind of videos I was making next, how many views the latest one got, or what milestone I was working toward. My father, who once begged me to focus on something serious, casually slipped my channel into conversations with relatives, as though he had always believed in me. My mother would smile as she told her friends, "You know, my kid has a channel with thousands of subscribers now." The irony didn't escape me. Friends who had mocked me for uploading cringe videos in the early days now treated me differently too. Suddenly, I was the YouTube guy. They'd brag about knowing me, tagging me in their posts, or saying things like, "I knew them before they blew up." Some even came to me for advice, asking how to start their own channels. I'll admit, there was a part of me that found it funny. These were the same voices that once told me I was wasting my life. Now they wanted to know my secrets. Even teachers who had dismissed my work in school began to take notice. I remember one in particular who used to say things like, "YouTube isn't a career, focus on your studies." That same teacher stopped me in the hallway one day, smiling and saying, "I saw your channel. It's really impressive. You're doing something special." Hearing those words from someone who once discouraged me was surreal. It wasn't bitterness I felt, but a quiet satisfaction, like I had proved something not just to them, but to myself. The recognition extended beyond my immediate circle. I started getting invitations to small creator meetups, online panels, and collaborations with people I once admired from afar. When one of my videos was featured in an article about rising creators, I almost couldn't believe it. Media outlets that once felt a world away were suddenly acknowledging me. Each invitation, each feature, was another reminder that what began in my bedroom with a shaky phone camera had grown into something real. And then came the sweetest moment of irony. One of the classmates who had been the loudest in mocking me, the one who used to replay my videos in front of everyone for laughs, sent me a message. They wanted a shout-out for their own small channel, hoping I could help them grow. I stared at the message for a long time, half smiling, half shaking my head. I didn't respond with anger or pettiness. Instead, I offered a polite but distant reply, because in that moment, I realized I didn't need revenge. The success I had built spoke louder than any clapback ever could. Looking back, it was clear. The tables had turned. What once brought me ridicule now brought me respect. What once seemed like a waste of time had become something people admired. But more than the validation from others, it was the realization within myself that mattered most, that I had been right to keep going, even when no one else believed. The jump from a few thousand subscribers to 1 million felt like a blur. Growth that once crawled at a snail's pace suddenly began to snowball. Each video reached more people than the last, and my subscriber count climbed in ways I had only dreamed about. I would refresh the dashboard and watch in awe as the numbers ticked upward, sometimes by thousands in a single day. It felt surreal, almost unreal, like I was watching someone else's channel instead of my own. When that 1 million milestone finally appeared on my screen, I sat in silence, stunned. I thought back to those first lonely nights, staring at videos with 0 views, wondering if I should quit. Now there were 1 million people, an entire city's worth of viewers, who had chosen to be part of this journey. The gold play button arrived in the mail not long after, and holding it in my hands was overwhelming. It wasn't just a shiny plaque. It was the physical embodiment of every late night, every doubt I pushed through, every ounce of persistence I refused to let go of. But the growth didn't stop there. It only accelerated. From 1 million, the leap to 5 million felt quicker than the entire climb before it. And then, almost before I could fully process it, I hit the number that once seemed impossible: 10 million subscribers. The diamond play button arrived, and when I opened the box, I couldn't help but laugh. Years earlier, I couldn't even get 10 people to click on my videos, and now a platform as massive as YouTube was sending me a literal diamond for my work. With the growth came new opportunities. I was no longer confined to my small room with a budget setup. I had the means to rent a proper studio space, to travel for collaborations, to film in locations I never imagined I'd see. Suddenly, I was being invited to events, featured in articles, asked to appear on podcasts. I met creators I had once looked up to as unreachable icons, and now they treated me as a peer. The kid who was mocked for wasting time on YouTube was now sitting on panels discussing the future of digital content. Of course, from the outside, it might have looked like an overnight success. People saw the big numbers, the shiny awards, the headlines and collaborations. What they didn't see were the years behind it. The sleepless nights, the failures, the countless videos that went unnoticed. The truth was, none of it happened overnight. Every milestone, every breakthrough, was built on a mountain of persistence, of showing up when it felt pointless, of creating even when no one was watching. And that realization meant more to me than any number ever could. Because while the growth was exponential, the foundation wasn't luck, it was persistence. It was choosing to keep that flame alive when the world told me to snuff it out. Reaching 10 million was a celebration, yes, but it was also a reminder. Everything I had been mocked for, doubted for, laughed at for, it was all worth it. They mocked, doubted, and laughed. But today, those laughs don't sting. They remind me how far I've come. What they once called wasting time became the very thing that changed my life. And if there's one lesson in this journey, it's simple. Never let someone else's disbelief decide your future. Passion plus persistence can turn a so-called waste of time into something extraordinary. 10 million subscribers later, I'm proof that the risk is worth it. And maybe your dream is too.